So in that case, yeah, welcome. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the NCCE Digital Skills Forum webinar. My name's Olivia. I'm in the membership team at BCS, and I'll be chairing the discussion this afternoon. So this session is part of a monthly series of webinars where we bring experts from education and industry together to look at how to deliver the computing skills and opportunities we need for our post-COVID future. The session today will be recorded and afterwards it will be made available on the NCCE YouTube channel from around next week. So we ask that all audience members, please could you turn off your cameras and set yourself to mute for the duration of the event. If you do have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat function and we'll answer these. We set aside some time at the end of the presentations to go through any Q&A. If we don't get round to all the questions and have time to answer them all, then we can publish responses to these questions separately afterwards. Do also feel free to share any comments and feedback on social media. The hashtags are #DigitalSkillsForum and our tag for Twitter is @WeAreComputing. So in this Digital Skills Forum session this afternoon, we're going to be looking at the topic of gender and digital skills. So we'll be talking about things like where are the biggest gaps in computing education and recruitment as well when it comes to gender diversity. How can your personal brand and a focus on overcoming systemic fear help women to succeed in STEM? And how can industry and education come together, work together, collaborate to ensure a sort of meaningful and sustained diverse recruitment pattern? And what alternative routes are there into tech that are the most inclusive as well? So we'll be answering those questions and many more through the presentations from our panel of speakers today. So allow me to introduce the first speaker this afternoon, Hema Purohit. Hema is a chief architect and a CTO for healthcare across EMEA for Microsoft, and also senior executive leader and former director of government and public sector UKI for Google Cloud. Hema has 27 years experience in the technology sector, and she's also an active supporter of women in technology, instrumental in many initiatives, leading, enabling, supporting and furthering the Women in Tech network. So thanks so much for joining us today, Hema, and over to you.
Thank you. I'm blushing. You probably can't see, but after that, I think I'm going to hire you, Olivia, to be my personal ambassador. Thank you. Look, absolutely great session. Thank you very much for the invite. And it's great to meet everybody else here. And I'm looking forward to this discussion. I think, you know, my view, just in terms of where I see some of the biggest gaps and where I see some of the biggest issues, and none of these are new. I think many people on the audience will probably agree violently. You know, the first thing is the obvious thing. There is a physical gap. You know, when we hire people into roles in technology and computing, unfortunately, there is still a huge bias on hiring men because technology is predominantly dominated by men. It is an environment that is seen to be geeky, and therefore it's not attractive to females. And actually, you know, I would argue the case and say that technology is probably one of the most creative, colourful and energetic spaces you can be in, irrelevant of gender. You know, there is a huge opportunity for you to come in and do so many things right across the technology space, but we're not very good at actually showing that to people, right? So I think the first thing is maybe the messaging, you know, even starting at school. And I know we're doing lots of STEM initiatives globally. Definitely, you know, there is, I think, a gap there in terms of the way that we introduce technology and computing specifically to young children. You know, instead of promoting it as being it's quite tough, it's quite boring, it's quite geeky, and actually you need to be really, really, really smart to do it. How about actually changing that completely to say, if you're a creative person and you can solve a problem and you want to help people, guess what? Technology is ideal for you, actually, right? So I think the messaging is a really important part. We're getting better at it, but I think there's much more that we can do. Unfortunately, I think another big gap for me is we don't have enough role models, right? We don't have enough women that we look up to to be able to say, I want to be like that person, so I'm going to go and do that. On paper, I have a really amazing career. You know, anybody looking at my profile would think, wow, she's done really well. And yes, I have, but actually it's not been easy because I didn't have the role models that I wanted as I was moving through. I'm just too stubborn, so I decided to do things my way, right? But it would be great if more of us could stand up to say, we're different, you know, even being a female, you can be black, brown, white, you can be, you know, anything actually, short, tall, right? It doesn't matter. But if you've got something to contribute and you can be successful in this environment, why shouldn't we support each other? You know, that would be great to have more normal people actually be there as the right stereotypes. And then, you know, kind of, I think the other thing for me is that fear comes into it. So, you know, I am a huge advocate of women in tech, but I think actually sometimes we are our worst own enemies. You know, that fear of, am I good enough? Can I do this? Often determines whether we do or not. So instead of thinking, that's too tough for me, or I can't be promoted into that position, or no way, you know, I haven't got all of the skills that I need, turn it on its head, right? Actually, if you have 5 out of the 8 skills that are needed for a role, if you were a male, you'd probably apply anyway. So I think that self-belief of we can, so we will, rather than we can't, so we won't, is something that we need to do for ourselves. That pressure of, you know, being in IT or being in technology is great if you're male, because you get used to the fact that you're on your own quite a bit and it's okay to be a lone wolf. Whereas women, you know, we need groups, we need support, we need, you know, we need to be popular. I mean, that's quite frankly all a pile of crap, and I won't swear on this call. You know, it's branding and it's mindset. It's the way we see ourselves sometimes is the biggest barrier. You know, when we are parents and it's coming up to Christmas, we'll go out and we'll buy gifts. We'll buy our boys games, we'll buy them Xboxes, we'll buy them, you know, all the geeky stuff, and it's like, go away and play with that. And we'll go out and find nice, delicate things and, you know, pretty things for our girls. Whereas actually, why don't we mix it up and just throw the whole lot out there and let people, you know, let the kids pick for themselves what they want to do, let them determine for themselves what they want to do. So, you know, there's probably a bit of a mixed bag in there, I think, in terms of, you know, stereotypes. There is the fact that we don't recruit the right people at the right time. The recruiting process itself can be quite restrictive, I think, in itself. But also, you know, you are your own best ambassador. So I would say to everybody, stand up and go and reach for what you want to do, because we're all living proof that we can get there. And I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to let the others jump in with some of their thoughts as well. But I hope that resonates with people.
No, that's great. Thanks, Hema. If I could just ask you, from all the great points you made there, if there was one key takeaway message you could leave the audience with from all the things you said, what would it be?
I think it would be, let's look at the way that we introduce tech to children. So instead of introducing it as that boring subject that's tough, you know, let's find new ways of introducing it, whether it's, you know, through the use of things like Lego, through painting, through music, right? All of those different places. And let's encourage that. Let kids make their own mind up about whether or not they think it's too tough, but also don't make the decision for them. You know, just because you're a female doesn't mean you can't do math, you can't do science, and you can't do engineering. Of course you can, right? So if your little girl wants to go out and do it, I would say back her up.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thanks so much, Hema. And so we'll move on to our second speaker, Jyoti. Jyoti is a faculty leader of business, art and culture, and also the STEM coordinator at Nishcombe High School, with a 14-year career in the education sector behind her. So Jyoti is currently training to become a STEM facilitator in computer science. She's also a CAS community leader for North Birmingham schools, and has been working since the start of her teaching career to boost the profile of STEM within schools, especially with female students. So over to you, Jyoti. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Olivia. Thank you, everyone. Hello. It's great. Thank you so much, Hema, for your points, because it fits nicely with what I'm going to talk about as well, with coming from the education sector. So I'm just going to share my presentation with everyone. I hope you're able to view it. So with what Hema said, is very, very similar to what I want to say as well. What do we think are the reasons for low uptake of girls taking GCSE and A-level computer science? And what are the barriers? And it's exactly that, the stereotypes with what we have. Oh, it's a hard subject, miss. I'm not clever, miss. Or no, it's too much hard work. I can't do this. It is always, those are the comments I've always heard. And what I want to do is, well, let's challenge this. We've got to break down those barriers. We've got to show them the different ways. And I think part of the problem is what we are shown in the media as well with technology. It is the geeky boy who has no friends. Have we seen a female computer scientist out there in technology? And I had a chat with my year 11 students about this, and the only one they could name was Garcia from Criminal Minds, who they absolutely love, and that was the one they could think about. So it is, okay, how do we change this? Because it is so true. We start at grassroots level. We start in the education setting, because that we know is the sweet spot on where students are going to make up their minds of what is happening, what career they want to go to, what progressions. So what have I done to break down these barriers? Well, part of it is that curriculum design. What are we showing to our kids? What are we giving that exposure to within the curriculum? And for me, what I found is programming. We can be so creative within programming, and it's not one size fits all. You can go out and you can do anything within programming, and giving that ability to students, showing what they can do and they themselves do it. I found that for me has been the greatest thing. And what I have found is the girls I've taught are one of the great programmers. They've been so good with how resilient they are, and the creativity they bring in, the support they bring into our groups as well. And also within that collaboration, the work as a team, work together, I found that within the curriculum, it's been so successful. So, you know, looking at the curriculum, making it inclusive to our students, challenging the stereotypes, opening their minds up is really, really important. What I've started this academic year is STEM Club. And what I've found is my older students are coming in to support the younger students. And it's been great. We've had girls yesterday. We did structural engineering yesterday, as it being Engineers Week. And we had bridge building going on. And there's my year 11 girls supporting STEM Club with the younger girls and boys as well. It is a mix, and it was great, them all working together, and they all really enjoyed it. We've got the upper school mentoring the younger school and building and driving them to different areas. I think that's been a success, and we want to carry it on. But what's been one of our biggest push and what's been successful is taking the learning outside the classroom, because it's good and all me talking about it and encouraging our girls, but they need to see people who are in the industry. They need to see what's out there. And what I found was taking part in competitions, national competitions, taking them to the Big Bang at the NEC, taking part in STEM Fest. All of that has really opened their eyes up, because they're looking at so many different careers within technology, within STEM. They're meeting people, they're talking to these people, and that in itself I found to be the greatest value, because they're like, wow, I could actually go and do this. When we went to STEM Fest, it's going to be, I think, 3 years ago, and my year 11 girls, they met from PwC, a lady who's doing her apprenticeship with PwC, who's doing her computer science degree and working with PwC. And it was fantastic. They asked her questions. How did you get in? What are you doing? How they find it? And that was so great, because so many girls then came back and said, oh, miss, do you know what? We really want to go and do this. We're so interested in this. And that I found to be so great. And I think for me, that's what I want as a person being in the education setting, is to meet with more people from industry, for people to give that support that I may not give to the best of my ability, but people actually from industry come to speak to our students. What is out there? What, you know, we may not have had the role models growing up in technology, and you know, within computer science when you're teaching as well, that's the role model. So what advice can be given to our students, what advice can be given to our girls. And I think building up that relationship with industry, I think for me, that is what I want to develop in our education setting, because we know we're taking part in competitions. We've got people who are taking part in STEM Club. They're really interesting. Now I want them to see what is out there and they can meet people for me. So that's one thing I think would be great. And I wanted to share this with you. This is a display that we started to work on in my school, in my classroom. Just this in itself made such a difference. Having posters out there of different females within technology, within STEM, that opened their minds up, you know, visual things as well. So the powerful impact we can have on students of not only meeting people, but seeing what's out there, they can, because like I said, it's great that me as a teacher who can talk to them about it, but them seeing it, that would make the biggest difference. So for me, it's making sure we can provide that support, encourage, challenge stereotypes, and just show our students what is out there and what they can achieve. And there's the support out there for them to achieve that. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jyoti. I can see you've listed a few key takeaways on the screen there. If you had to choose just one thing maybe that you could say to other teachers and really encourage them to do for their students, what would that one thing be?
I've got two things. Sorry, it's just so hard. I hope you don't mind. One is challenging the classroom culture, having these conversations. I've had plenty, you know, being a boy heavy subject and me being the only female teacher teaching them, you get asked a lot of things, and, you know, challenge them. Do not worry about that. Encourage our girls, encourage them to take part, because I think what I found is sometimes they don't want to say something because they're worried. Give them that safe environment, build that safe environment where they can say things, where they can talk about their problems, and bring that support mechanism in there. And the second thing is that support work with industry, build up a network with people, with businesses, get them to come in, go out, speak to them, but or go to different events. That I found to be one of the biggest things that has given a great aspiration to the girls I teach. They really have seen these females and spoken to them. Those two things I would say.
That's great. Thanks so much, Jyoti.
Thank you.
And so now we'll move on to our third and final speaker for today, Debbie Forster. Debbie is an award-winning figure in areas of diversity, tech, innovation, and education. She's a portfolio consultant and a coach, and is co-founder and CEO for the Tech Talent Charter, otherwise referred to as TTC. This is part of, you know, an industry collective which aims to deliver greater inclusion and diversity in the UK tech workforce. And Debbie was awarded an MBE in 2017 for services to digital technology and tech development. Debbie also chairs the Institute of Coding's Diversity Board, and also serves on the government's Digital Economy Council and its Money and Pension Service Advisory Board as well. So thanks so much, Debbie, for joining us this afternoon, and over to you. You are on mute, actually.
2.5 years into lockdown, 2 years into lockdown, and I still come on with a muted thing. My apologies. Can I also add to, for this audience in particular, the accent is strange. So people will wonder, is she Canadian? Is she American? I'm an American who's been here for 30 years, and I spent the first 20 years in education. So when you talk about the joys of teaching a class of kids on a Thursday afternoon when it's windy and dark, etc., I remember that well. I think the thing that I would say to everyone in the room is, as tough as it is, I think, please remember, we began Tech Talent Charter back in 2016. And that was early days when people were still trying to get companies to realize that there wasn't enough diversity in tech, there weren't enough women in tech, or get them to realize that that was a problem, that if we solved it, everybody wins. If we don't, we're losing. But the world has moved on, and we went from, in our early days, having about 17 companies who were working with us on how do we really move the dial on diversity in tech, to now over 650 companies who are involved, and that is Microsoft. So Hema, you can smile. BCS is a member, universities. And so in trying to do things with students, in trying to move that dial, the first thing that I would say to everyone is remember that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of organizations out there who are beginning to connect the dots and beginning to share things. And in getting employers to work together, what we're starting to do is to get them to look at the whole pipeline. And I think that's really important. So it is absolutely crucial that I chase with a stick wherever I can employers to make sure that they are creating a workplace that is welcoming to women, that offers that flexibility, that offers them this career development. But that's not going to fix it. What we have to do is to look through the whole of the pipeline. And so what you can do on the call is to begin to tap into that. So one thing that I would point you in the direction of is one of our partner organizations, which is called Tech She Can. And Tech We Can. This is over 200 companies who are working together to create materials to help inspire young people to think about a career in tech. And that is thinking about, as you said, Hema, as you said, Georgie, about role models, but it's also bringing to life what tech is. So these are short, free, bite-sized pieces of content that you can show to your young people to say, how does tech and the environment intersect? How does tech and entertainment, tech in holidays, tech in festivals? And they're great examples from real corporate partners on how to do this. And so whenever I'm talking to an employer that wants to do something in schools, as well as talking about computing at schools, BCS and what you're doing, I'm getting them because I know as a teacher, you can feel inundated from offers from every single direction. So wherever we can try and make that easier for you to just go on to a website, pull something down and use it in a quick and easy way, when really you just need something to point and click, I would urge you to look at Tech She Can. Another thing to think about is obviously universities and the traction into the piece, because you know, in the past, there have been a lot of universities that have not done themselves any favors in how they recruit and how they promote their programs. But there was a government-funded initiative through the Department for Education called Institute of Coding. Now, Institute of Coding really went in, this was looking at a partnership with over a dozen universities across the whole of the UK and companies coming together to really look from the very basics. What is that curriculum? What is the pedagogy? How are we teaching that? Then thinking about, and how do we recruit into our computing courses? So again, if you're looking at some great things to point your students at, to think about, one, just recruiting. There was some cracking pieces done online and video clips of really bringing to life all sorts of young people. There's no point me coming on screen to talk about my career in tech because I'm practically their grandmother. Where we can get that full range of people who are in tech to try and share that together, you can find that in Institute of Coding, and they're really rethinking how that is delivered. So those are two really easy things to think about. The other thing to be aware of, and you mentioned that at the start, Olivia, is we are realizing that in tech, we've missed the boat with a lot of people. All right. And there's a lot of people who haven't opted in to GCSE, to A level, to university, etc. Others who don't see going that very academic route to get into computing as the way forward for them. And so what you're going to see can really continuing to explode is these alternate routes into tech. In fact, one of the things that we're trying to work with everyone in the Tech Talent Charter is to make those alternative routes into tech mainstream. And so that will be looking at these boot camps that the government is funding now. This is looking at apprenticeships. This is looking at part-time courses, virtual courses, career conversion courses, so that anyone at any point in their career, whether they are 18 up to death, all right, I'm going to be bold. I'm just going to go with it. The whole lifespan, that there is a way in. We need to in tech, and tech companies are realizing that we need to create that revolving door, which makes it easy for people to get into tech. The last thing I'd say is to, when you're talking to your students, is we know how fast the world is changing. We know today we're trying to prepare young people for careers we can't possibly imagine in 3 to 5 years' time. The one thing that we do know from the statistics is increasingly having those digital skills, having those technical skills and being able to apply them, guarantee them a job. But I can go beyond that. Right now, you need to remember that there was a tech shortage, a gaping hole in UK tech before COVID. Then COVID came, and COVID made everybody realize, if they hadn't before, everybody needs tech people. So when I talk about our signatories, yes, I have Microsoft and Cisco and Salesforce, but I have Lloyd's Bank, I have Sky TV, I have Domino's Pizza, I have Cancer Research UK. So when we talk about our young people, and I'm sad, but it's pragmatic, how many of our young people are already wondering and worrying, will they have a job in the future? And so are their parents. So the thing to say to them is, if you want a guaranteed job, if you want a guaranteed job now, 5 years, 10 years into in the future, and in any sector, and to think about the full range, then we can absolutely guarantee them they will have jobs. It's a job they're always going to have to be learning in. It's a job they're always going to have to upskill, but it is a job that is not going away. And it does become a great gateway into sectors that young people want to. You know, one of my directors works for the Football Association. They're desperate for tech talent, entertainment, journalism, all those things we know our young people believe and want to. Look at the passion we're getting out of with all that we're talking about the environment. There are so many things that young people can do, and companies are looking for them. So I love Churchill's never waste a good crisis. Tech is in crisis, trying to find jobs, trying to find people into jobs. So as teachers, we can tell the young people, this is a way that you can get in, and it can be creative. And then we can point to, as you've heard on the call, the role models, the materials, the opportunities to them. So teaching is never an easy job. But in terms of trying to empower our young people and help them see how they might get into tech, there's a lot out there, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Look at Tech She Can, look at Institute of Coding. And then if you're working for a company and thinking, why my company not doing it, get them into the Tech Talent Charter so we can get them to work to open the doors for our young people.
Thanks so much, Debbie. That's great. And once again, if you could leave the audience with just one key message out of all the points you made, what would you like that to be?
Tap into what's already out there.
Yeah.
Don't reinvent the wheel.
Yeah. That's brilliant. Thank you. Okay, so some great talks there, and we've got a few questions now that we'll move on to. So I think some of the questions are a little bit more focused.
Sorry, and Olivia, sorry to butt in. Just one thing I wanted to just mention before we take questions. We've talked predominantly about education, and we've talked about young children. Please let me make the point that that's one part of the market, but the digital skills gap cannot just be filled by just young children, right? There is a whole army of women out there who are cross-skilling. They're coming back to work after having maternity leave. They're women who have been in jobs but decide on career changes. Everything we've discussed today is applicable to those older women as well, actually, right? So anyone who's out of school onwards, and actually, you know, somebody who brings work experience into tech with them is also, you know, invaluable. So everything is the same for, you know, wherever you are, whether you're a young child at school or whether you're somebody who's a little bit older. But yeah, I would say, you know, everything we said applies to that whole gender.
Even more so, I would agree. We're being insurrectionists, Olivia. We're jumping in before the questions.
Go for it.
But I think the retraining piece, we had a campaign last year that was one of our most successful campaigns of doing it anyway. And we did a shout out asking for women who retrained to get into tech for looking at. And we thought we'd be shortlisting from maybe 100 women. We had 350 women tell us their stories from across the piece of how they came from outside tech into tech, and the companies raving about how fantastic they are. And so it is one of the things that we're saying, these alternate routes into tech for 2021, 2022, they must become mainstream, because we need those wider skills, as you say, to bring in. It's a huge piece of what's happening at the moment.
Definitely. And actually leads on really nicely to the question that I was going to ask, which is about, again, not just young people, but any women who are entering tech spaces. It's kind of a two-part question. So first of all, what in your opinion is the sort of biggest barrier to women entering these tech spaces and how we could overcome it? But then also additionally, like, have you got any examples of any innovations that have been really helpful in reducing the gender bias when it comes to recruitment or workplace practices? So maybe we'll do it in order of speakers. So Hema, if you want to go first.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think just repeat the question for me so I can make sure I'm answering the right one.
So the first part is what's, in your opinion, the biggest barrier to women entering tech spaces, and then the second bit is about different innovation strategies and examples that you might have of good practice of ways to sort of overcome that and create more inclusive recruitment processes or workplaces.
Okay, so I think that the first part of that question, one of the biggest barriers is that women typically look at tech jobs and think they have to have coding degrees. They have to have done, 15, 20 years worth of experience of having been sat behind a desk, and they must be able to know every coding language that there is. You don't have to be a coder to have a job in tech, is the first thing. That's the biggest barrier, right? So you can be an analyst, you can do marketing in tech, you can be working in commercial finance in tech, you could be doing asset management in a tech company. Every single job you could possibly think of is applicable to the tech industry. So as a woman, you will definitely have skills that are applicable in that environment. So don't be put off. I think, that builds on the issue as well around, do we have the confidence in our skill set? Do we have all of the skills that are on the job description? Let me tell you a secret, job descriptions are wish lists, right? Anybody who writes a job description doesn't expect to get any individual who's going to walk in through the door with even more than 40 or 50% of those skills. So do yourself a favor, I think, right? Which is, it's okay for you to apply for a job that you might not have all the skills for. Because if you can determine and show that you've got passion, you've got the interest and the desire to want to do a really good job, 9 times out of 10, the employer will take you on. I think in terms of sort of best practice and how we can change that, as an individual who has been in tech and has done recruitment, some of the things that I found that I could do to change the process a little bit was to push back. So, when I have a vacancy, if the CVs coming into me are all male dominated, I'm perfectly right to push that back and say, why do we not have adequate representation here? I'm not just going to pick from the CVs that my recruiter gives me. I'm going to go back and say, please go out and make sure you've got a diverse pool here, right, of every single body. The second thing is, as a recruiter and a hiring manager, be a little bit flexible. If somebody comes to you and shows you that they've got desire and passion, maybe they're not as experienced as the male you just interviewed, but if they're the right fit for the job, then, give that person a chance. Everybody needs a leg up on the ladder at some point. So, I think we can all do our bit by being there and supporting people. Don't be put off as well by, oh, this is a woman, she's got a family, she's going to need time off, because it makes no difference. Actually, we're really good at multitasking and doing all of those things. So, be a bit more open-minded, I think, in that respect. And also, I think the biggest thing, when we post vacancies, the wording that we put on a job description and a vacancy, especially in technology, unfortunately, is not gender friendly. It's not attractive. It doesn't welcome people in, especially if they're female. So again, that's our job. Let's not rely on language we've used in the past, but let's try some creative, flexible language that actually is open and is going to attract the right people.
That is absolutely right. Yeah, definitely. That's really good points. I'm actually going to come to you next, Debbie, for that question. I'm going to change the question slightly for Jyoti.
So 2 things. I'd echo what Hema was saying. I think the biggest barrier is that confidence when we're going up against the job market. And so absolutely everything that Hema was saying of be bold, understand about the job descriptions. But I go it further, because this is what we're saying to our employers. If you can't use that mindset anymore, if we build it, they will come. if we play the game the old way, it's going to work. And so we are urging companies to do all the sorts of things that you were saying, Hema, in terms of rethinking your recruitment process, requiring diversity on your shortlist, rethinking those pieces. And so I think as women, remember what I said in that the first fact, which is tech is dying for women. The tech shortage is there, it's growing, and with the Great Resignation, it is getting worse. So know that even if that first company isn't the good fit for you, there will be tech companies that are. Have a look at the Tech Talent Charter signatory list. There is 650 companies who are actively engaged in looking at diverse workforces, and that would include you. So don't keep throwing yourself against the companies that aren't a good fit. Know that there's a place for you out there, and find that right place and stand up for the things you are looking for, be it flexible working, be it more inclusive job descriptions, be it better in application processes. Find a company that you know can grow you in that respect. And in terms of, what is best practice, what is most effective, what I would say is, to companies who join the Tech Talent Charter, which is free, we have an open playbook now. So we have an open playbook that shares what companies have done on all aspects, whether it's culture, recruitment, retention, growth, promotion, alternate routes into tech. It then also goes through gender, ethnicity, social mobility, et cetera. And you can go in to say, how can I improve my job descriptions? How can I do my attraction piece? How can I set up an effective apprenticeship scheme? You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's free information where you can learn from other companies in this space to make that better. So I think it's for the women, get in and ask, get in and look. There are companies who are looking for someone like you. And we as employers should be removing those barriers. It's as Hema said, start rethinking how to do this differently. Start thinking about how are we genuinely attracting people? What is the user experience of a potential employee? How are we genuinely making it inclusive so that we get the best field, the best results to get the best people at the other end of that process, which is crucial. And for employers, you don't have to figure it all out by yourself. There are 650 companies who are talking about exactly how they talk about what works and what doesn't work. Sometimes it's more useful to know what not to do than it is to think about what to do. So there's a lot going on in this space that companies can plug into.
Thanks so much, Debbie. And then Jyoti, just changing the question slightly for you. It's more about what are you hearing from your students, I guess, about what barriers are they perceiving about tech careers or following on in tech education? And then in terms of examples from organizations, maybe more about what, if you mentioned getting involved externally with events, and I saw Cyber First Girls on the list and Big Bang. What types of events are you seeing that are really benefiting your female students and getting them excited and encouraged about getting into technology?
First question, what I'm hearing from girls, I don't understand computers. It doesn't work, or I just don't get it, miss. It is those responses, and this is coming from students who've, we've not even started the lesson, so it's coming from outside and bringing it in, so they're preconceived notions, but also we don't know what stereotypes have been fed to them, and that is challenging that. Or if a program's not working, how do we build up that resilience as well? So those are the main comments I hear. I don't understand computers, or it doesn't work for me. So changing that mindset, or it's too hard. It's a hard subject. You have to be very clever. You have to know maths. I can't do maths. So it is breaking all of those barriers. And yeah, that's been the main comments I've been hearing. That the type of events that's worked for me is the Big Bang. I in any talk I've done, I can't praise the Big Bang so much, because the whole workshops that are out there, that has helped so much with our students, the girls, what they see. So definitely the Big Bang competitions, national competitions, taking part in that, Cyber First. So a couple of years ago before, so my current year 11 girls, when they were in year 8 and we did the cyber first with them, they absolutely loved it. Lunchtimes they were coming in, and 2 of our girls went to the GCHQ residential trip, which then on they're like, Miss, that's it, we want to go into cybersecurity. And they're doing GCSE computer science, that's it, they are ready. They want to come back for sixth form, do IT, and that is the route they want to do. And that is what I've found in education so far, is that year 8, year 9, that age group, year 8 more, that age 13, 12, 13 is the one that I need to hit, because they've made up their minds, they've thought about their options, this is what I want to go into. So it is starting from young. It is starting from primary school to secondary school, showing them what's out there, because they are building up with what they're seeing in the media, with what is out there, you know, that is bringing up with their life and the choices they're making. So those events, I think, are very, very important. And just STEM club, I would encourage so many schools to have a STEM club. There are STEM ambassadors that you can call in as well. Take that all out there. STEM club, there's people who will deliver it. We did a whole STEM week last academic week, and it was great. 7, 8 and year 9s took part in so many activities throughout the day. Really engaged, because like Debbie mentioned, we did not our typical code breaking. We did wind turbines. We did so many different sports, science, sports in tech, all of that, which our students can engage with, because, you know, typically it's like, oh, computers, you're just sitting behind a desk, that's it. There's nothing else involved in life with that. That's what students, they've got that preconceived notions. Let's break the barriers, look what's out there. STEM club this half term, the theme I've given them is climate. How can we use technology and STEM within climate? And they're loving it. They're thinking of different ideas. We're on different software, they're building, they're on microbits, anything, they're doing something. So, you know, we can be creative, innovative with this subject. Let's show what's out there. And rightly so, with both of our speakers have said there's things out there. We're not reinventing the wheel. Let's bring it together and show them. And if we're all saying the same thing, then that gap, we can completely narrow it and one day, hopefully, close it. And that's what we want. So yeah, for me, STEM club, all of that, taking part in different events, calling last academic, because of online, I did a STEM Insights Week with our A-level students, where we set up Teams meeting, and I asked STEM ambassadors to come speak to our students within STEM subjects about careers. And we had female speakers come in, and it was brilliant. They spoke to our A-level students. The A-level students had questions to ask them. I took feedback from our students, and they really found it insightful, that they could ask questions to people within that industry as well. So that as well for me has worked.
That's great. Thanks, Jyoti. And I think so encouraging what you said there. You know, we can all come together and we can close the gap. Really great message to end on there. So thanks so much, Hema, Jyoti and Debbie for speaking to us today. And thanks to everyone who's joined us as well. And just a reminder that obviously the NCCE is here to support and develop educators from primary all the way through to A-level, with the vision that every child receives a world-leading computing education. And we're here to and want to equip teachers with the skills, the confidence and the knowledge to be able to do this. And last but not least, if you're not keeping in touch with us already, I'm just going to stick some links in the chat so you can keep up with us. And as said at the beginning, the YouTube one there is where we'll post the recording of this event afterwards if you want to catch up on anything again. So thanks so much, everyone, and have a good evening.